G'day guys, Clint here recording episode number 71 of The Full Landscape. Today's guest, Mr. Damian Hough, is the head curator at Adelaide Oval. He's been a friend of mine and the podcast, I guess, for, it feels like a decade. Whenever I have anything that I need a professional involved in, that's inside his wheelhouse, I call him and he just says yes. He's a very kind human being. He's happy to share his knowledge and his time. He's been a speaker at many of our events, and so I reached out to him last week and said, hey, I need a podcast, and he's like, yeah, no worries. So Damian is in charge of a team that looks after Adelaide Oval and the surrounding area. It's a very high profile job in South Australia. You know, being the head curator of Adelaide Oval has a lot of eyes on it, but he has managed to navigate that with composure and skill. Now, today's podcast, I was expecting to be a little bit more technical and talk about turf and, you know, what's your favourite turf and that, but it really went quite deep, and it was a conversation more than a podcast, which is how I like to do this, which covered off his experiences and hopefully some learnings for anyone out there that's looking to move into the turf business or even just climb inside their business. So, yeah. If you've got any questions for me or Damian, hit me up. Damian's not massive on social media, so you probably won't find him. But if you have any questions that we haven't covered off and you want me to ask him, I can. At the end of the podcast, he talks about some recruitment that's coming up. So if you're a mechanic that wants to work at Adelaide Oval servicing their machinery, could be a good opportunity, because I don't think it's actually a job that's out yet, but we might be able to put you in touch. That is it. I'll leave it with you. Hope you enjoy this one. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in, sir. Usually, most people are fully aware that I'm a very short notice human being, and you said yes to this pretty quickly. So for those listening and watching today, if you can give me a quick introduction on who you are and why you are sitting here today.
I'm Damian Hough, the head curator of Adelaide Oval. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, mate.
And you're here because I needed to do a podcast and you said yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, I know we'd spoken about it a few times, but, yeah, happy to come in and tell my story.
Now's a good time for you to do something like this. Obviously, I mean, I guess there's no great time. You always seem to have something going on, but...
Yeah, we're always busy, but, always happy to help people out, mates out, and I suppose tell our story and support the industry wherever we can.
So head curator, what falls under that? What are you responsible for, both human-wise and lawn, grass? What do we call it? Turf in your world, turf-wise?
Yeah, so we look after anything that grows, really, whether it's turf or trees, gardens, and those sort of things. Think about it within the 4 roads around Adelaide Oval, that precinct, except for the gardens and the lawns on the east, which the Adelaide City Council look after. Creswell and
Yep.
Pennington. So they look after that. We look after the entrances, so the East Plaza, some raised garden beds and plane trees, and the northern, wherever the cars would park on game days, on event days, that's us in the north, all the way up to Lights Vision. And then coming back down the hill is all us onto number 2 ground. And we're lucky enough, we've had the Next Generation contract on their courts over there for... have to be 15 years now, and we look after that on behalf of Next Generation and Memorial Drive Tennis.
So they've got grass courts there?
Yeah, they've got 13 currently,
Wow.
Was 15, probably when we first took over, and since redevelopment 2 or 3 years ago, we're down to 13 grass courts.
And those, so the Creswell, I'm assuming because the activities of AOSMA don't impact the lawn, the grass,
Yep.
the turf, you don't touch, that's not your problem, but because you've got cars driving on grassed areas, it's kind of your responsibility to keep those good?
Yeah, so the licence changed back in 2013. So when the construction happened and we moved out, I suppose that the structure changed around that time. I went from looking after Adelaide Oval number 2, working for Saka. Saka walked away and gave up their right to maintain Adelaide Oval, and I started working for Adelaide Oval Stadium Management Authority, and the grounds department merged into one between Footy Park staff and Adelaide Oval staff, into one group, except for one employee with the SANFL, with Des Fry. He stayed down at Footy Park and and looked after that. But everyone else came together and we started looking after that. We kept looking after Park 25, which is now the Park 25 Karen Rolton Oval sort of precinct. We looked after that in the first 2 years, and then Saka took that back over and brought in their own staff. It was about 2014 or 15 when that happened.
So how does that work? Like, you guys have a contract for 2 years, and then you just have to work out your staffing. You lose an oval like at Karen Rolton. That's obviously 2 people, or I don't know how many staff you need to look after an oval full time, but one or 2 full time humans.
Yeah, so basically it was when it started in 2000, or when I took over in 2010, it was one person. We looked after Park 25. Karen Rolton Oval used to be called Railways, so we didn't look after that. And then probably in 2000, and the first employee that I had down there was Nathan Lyon. So that was his job. His job was to look after that. When he chose cricket over footy, probably the right choice, but he
seems to work out for him.
Yeah, it has. And he went off, and our apprentice at the time, good apprentice Glenn Lehman, took over, looked after it. A year later, we got my current assistant curator in Todd Heinrich down there to support Glenn, and he took over as a turf manager down there, and stayed there really until he went over to New Zealand as an assistant there, and then they sort of took over from there, and Saka looked after it, and really it was the staff down there were always maintained that we wouldn't get them back in at work. It was a standalone satellite grounds, and they looked after it and did a great job, and it's amazing right now where they're at.
So if Saka take that contract back, theoretically those staff could just transfer their employment, as much as it's a bit shit. Like
that's how it worked. Those staff ended up going back over to Saka. Yep. My assistant at the time, in Justin Groves, he was ready. He'd had enough of listening to me for 14, 15 years, so he ended up going over there, and fronting up the Saka turf manager's role, which was looking after Karen Rolton and Park 25, which is a world-class training facility, high-performance training facility, but also assisting with improving pitches around Adelaide and South Australia. As in,
they'd be looking at improving pitches because of the amount of state cricket that's being played on that many different pitches. It's not just that one pitch kind of thing.
Yeah, again, it's about improving the quality of pitches, and improves the competition. It improves the players, and really giving the support. And Saka really invested heavily in going back to grassroots, I suppose, and just trying to support and develop the facilities out in those areas.
So what size is your team now?
Yeah, right now, so we're growing, but right now we're 10 full-time staff, and we get a summer casual. The last few years we've been able to pick one up out of England, and it works quite well. It's our off-season. We get one with a bit of experience behind them that are keen to grow and develop, and then we'll always look, if we can, to develop our staff, and if we can get them back over to England we don't really have an off-season, but when the grass isn't quite as active, and we can try and have a plan in place to send somebody overseas.
For people that don't fully understand, give us some stats around, I guess, what happens on Adelaide Oval, the main oval, over a 365-day period. Like, what have you got, 20 games of AFL?
Yeah, and more. So our core diet is football and cricket, obviously. So footy season, AFL every week. We have a bye round around about that halfway stage, where we are able to do a semi-aggressive renovation. Otherwise, it's AFL every week. A lot of the time there's double headers with SANFL games, state games, state underage games, corporate type events, and then we also have 6 kick-to-kicks post game, which take a fair workload.
As in, that's impactful more than just.
Yeah, the kick-to-kicks are quite damaging on the oval, just the flattening out and the stress it puts on the turf. We're pure ryegrass these days, so it's really good for footy season, but it's a fair bit of stress that gets put on it. But that's part of the overall game day experience, trying to produce a game day experience that people want to come to the footy. So it's about supporting the clubs and the AFL or the cricket and Cricket Australia in producing a product or providing the opportunity to maximise attendance and have a good atmosphere at the game.
And then cricket, you'll play obviously some international one day as a test. Yep. And then all of the state test. Yeah,
so footy season there's training, main sessions and captain's runs. So the day before a light, shorter session of the selected team. We haven't had a lot of main sessions this year. We've had a lot of captain's runs, purely around gather round. Ed Sheeran short period into gather round. So we've been able to restrict it because of the grow-in side of the turf and needing to, and the unknowns really with gather round.
Because the gather round we just had was the first time the Oval ever experienced that much footy.
Yeah, yes and no. So we always have, the one game during the year. We'll try and we had State of Origin last year. We'll try and get the Wallabies, Socceroos, Matildas, those sort of games. We'll always try to get something reasonably big and another code at one game in the off-season or non-cricket season during football season. And then we come into, like now, into that September period and it ramps up even more. So we always want football finals, and the footy finals are important. SANFL, double headers every week or triple headers. And then we're hoping to get, right now we know we've got Port playing one final. Who knows, after this week we might end up with a second if things go the way we hope. So so it's a really busy period. But the beauty is this time of year that the grass is starting to recover and bounce back. So we sort of say we manage turf decline from round one to the end of the season. And then we've got a really small window to change the pitches over, take the heights down, do a renovation, get it in cricket mode, and then straight into cricket. So, and that can vary. This year we've got 3 Shield games, I think 3 one-day Marsh Cup games. We've got obviously 5 Big Bash games plus finals. So that's
about Big Bash. Yeah.
Big Bash has gone from 7 now down to 5.
Because there's less games in total, or Adelaide's getting less games?
Nah, less games in total. So they've taken 2 home games off of each state. So the amount of games in the tournament now is less.
I wonder if that's because it's declining.
Good question. I'm not sure. I think it worked really well previously. And I think there's so many T20 competitions out there now that it's finding that.
True,
that
to
spot.
try and get the talent to choose to come to South Australia. If you shorten the season, it might mean that you've got your key players before they go back to wherever, India or South Africa or whatever happens.
Yeah, and then we have the Test match this year in January, when we normally have it in mid-December.
Yeah.
So we've got a day game against West Indies. And then, literally day 6 of that test match is a Big Bash final if the strikers are in it. So they'll be busy periods, but there's a lot of unknown with that and how they're travelling. And then, we go straight into a short period into a couple white ball internationals, a men and a women. Women 50 over and a men's T20. And then look at pulling pitches out and go straight into concerts.
And so there's... How many days a year is there nothing on the Oval? Less than 50 or less than 100? Or
No, mid-weeks. Cricket-wise, 2 days out they train. And that's on the Oval. The day before they're on the Oval. So you could work it out. There could be 4 or 5 days where we don't have anything. In November, we have a 2 or 3 week period where we'll be able to get a decent renovation in and do some significant work to get it through that summer period and almost get it start thinking about AFL in November. What can we do to really put us in a good position for March, April that following year?
You said before that it's 100% ryegrass. Is there any hybrid in it at all? Like, or is it's just pure rye?
Yeah, so we do have. So when we first built the oval, it was a reinforced turf, replacement turf, ready to play, Strathair matrix. Over the last 3 years, we've been looking at different options at what's out there. And every turf product has strengths and weaknesses. We've got to try and work out what is the best product for Adelaide Oval and our environmental conditions, but our usage of, with events and schedules, our training requirements. So we've been trialling. We know what the Strathair product looks like. We've been looking at the Evergreen product and also the HG Hero product, which is a true hybrid with the artificial fibres. You've got drop-in pitches, which it depends on the audience. This is probably a very landscape audience, but just explain I guess, the elevator pitch of a drop-in pitch. Like, if someone says, what are you talking about? What's a drop-in pitch? What is that? Yeah, so in 2011, I suppose, when we decided, or when we were told that football, AFL, was coming back to Adelaide Oval, the non-negotiable was we had to remove the centre wicket. So there was Sacker's credit, and to the members' credit, they voted in favour of that. But there was a fair bit of pressure on to get it right. So what that meant was the original soil and that original block of clay in the middle, which you need for pitch preparation, was removed. We were able to take the organic off and store it off site with peat soils, and we were able to, in its place, put in cricket pitch trays, and all that is a steel tray. It's not quite like this, but in simple terms, it's 25 metres long, 3 metres wide, 150 millimetre steel wall with supports sort of bracing through it to make it nice and rigid. And we fill it up with cricket pitch soil, so a clay product that's somewhere between 60 and 65%, and then put grass on the top. So what we were really fortunate with was Les Burdett, my old boss, was able to store 420 tonne when Athelston got redeveloped. So no good to the developer, really important. It's gold for us in pitch curating world. So he stored it, we processed it, sprayed it out over months and months and months. Pete's picked it up, pulled all the organic off, looked after it, got it tested, processed it, and used the same soil that Les had been digging out by hand, he tells me, into the back of a Bedford with the curator before Les in Arthur Lance.
So when you said Athelston, as in it was from a place in Athelston, like from a quarry, or?
Athelston before it got subdivided and it was just paddocks.
Market garden kind of.
Market garden, yeah. So that's what they used to use in the market gardens. So we were able to get it. Les, to his credit and Sacker's credit, got that soil, put it aside. There was a myth about this soil for all these years, 14 years that I'd worked there. And then we went out there one day. We started talking about drop-ins. So when we started talking about drop-ins, I made sure I surrounded myself with the best people. I hadn't done much work on drop-ins, but Les had with some of the World Series period, but also out in Melbourne, he was in charge of preparing the pitch that was played at Marvel Stadium now, but Dockland Stadium back then. He prepared that, so he had experience, and we got a guy called Peter Semos in who had been a part of drop-ins with Strathair from the existence of the drop-ins when Strathair started building them at the MCG and places like that. So we were able to get two really knowledgeable people in the room, and my job was just to work with them, and I really was there just saying why this, why that, because I knew
as a representative of Aosma and Sacker, just to say, what
are we doing, how are we doing it,
not like audit the process, just to make sure that nothing.
Correct. Yeah, and my job really was to listen, observe, work with these guys who are very knowledgeable in the industry, and just to bounce ideas off them, and collectively we came up with the tray. So it's a Strathair design tray, modified for what we felt was going to work at Adelaide Oval, and then we built it with soil that had been used at Adelaide Oval for 50 years, and with a grass variety that was in 6 of the 8 pitches for the 14 years that I was there working under Les. So, and that's half the reason why I feel they've been reasonably successful, is that it's the same grass and the same soil, which is really important for the characteristics of your trays and what you're trying to produce.
Obviously, one of the key differences being that you've only got a 150mm depth. Does that bring its own challenges around, I guess, pitch aging and moisture content?
Yeah, so it's 150 wall, but it's got 50 on top, so it's a 200 depth.
Okay.
And yeah, we learnt the hard way. We learnt by getting it wrong, and hopefully not many people saw that, but we definitely had some challenging times, but you've just got to learn and grow and keep adjusting. So we were very fortunate in the first few years. The first year of drop-ins, Mitch Johnson ripped through the Poms, one of the best fast bowling spells you'd ever see on a really flat pitch. They left us alone because it looked like Adelaide Oval, it felt like Adelaide Oval. So
that was because of his bowling, not because of your pitch prep?
Oh, to this day, if I see him, mate, I owe you. I owe you beers.
Oh, because he made the pitches look so good.
Oh, he bowled so well. So that was really good. We had some challenging periods during the Shield season, then trying to get a pitch to deteriorate. So when you think of Adelaide, what do you think about? Adelaide Oval is a good batting track. Might have a bit in it for the quicks early. Was always a good batting track. Back end, half a day 1, day 2, day 3, and then it'd start to play up on days 4 and 5. It'd get variable for the quick, so stump to stump bowling, you would play up, stay low, LB comes in, and it'd spin. So we just couldn't get a pitch to deteriorate. In year 2, we started doing some really radical stuff that I felt was really radical. Changing it up, how are we going to get a pitch to deteriorate? We were able to get a pitch to spin in both years, but the quicks weren't able to get too much, and it was the balance between bat and ball was in favour of the batter way too much. So we played around with things, did some different things. One of the best test matches I've ever had was in 2014. Nathan Lyon spun the Aussies to victory late on day 5 against India. So it was turning big, proper bouncing. Yeah, and it was unbelievable. Anyone could have won up until the last session, probably the last drinks break. And then it happened. There's a lot of appeals happening. A lot of opportunities just didn't go his way. And then when he got the 1 wicket, 2 wickets, it just fell apart. It's one of the best finishes that I've had as a head curator. 2006-07. Ashes would be right up there too when Warney spun him to victory on day 5, and then we come down and chase down the runs pretty quickly. So they're the couple that stand out. But we went through some different things, and then and we talked to curators. So yeah, the beauty with what we do is we all support each other around the country. So if I have any concerns, I'll ring one and bounce ideas off. And someone for me was a curator at the MCG at the time in Cameron Hodgkins, who I just respected so much. He'd done the hard yards. He'd worked his butt off. And at the time, he was nailing everything. And we were talking about drop-ins and how do we do it and where do we go. And so it was really good. And a guy called Peter Devlin out of North Sydney, he was able to get really, not so much on drop-ins, but he was able to get pace and bounce. And he was consulting to Olympic Stadium there and able to do some stuff and get some really good feedback. So just talking to different people, whether it's Les, whether it's Kevy Mitchell, these sort of guys, that you're able to pick little ideas off, tweak little things, but we weren't far off. So you don't want to chuck everything that you've been taught, because you've been taught the Adelaide Oval way, which is so important. But you tweak little things, and we went through a World Cup at the start of 2015 was some of the best white ball cricket pitches that we've produced. And we used that and we went into pink ball cricket. And the day-nighter just changed so dramatically, changed the way we prepared because we couldn't produce the same type of pitch as what we used to because it was abrasive and it ripped the ball apart. So we changed things and we asked for feedback. The beauty is that I'm not an expert in the game of cricket and I ask for feedback. And I pick who I talk to, but I ask the right people for the feedback. And we did it for a pink ball. We did it for a Shield game, which was basically Australia or New South Wales playing the Redbacks. Got the feedback. Said, what do you reckon with a red ball if we do the same? Did it for the red ball. Feedback was unbelievable. Sean Marsh, Justin Langer, playing WA, and their feedback on the morning of day 4 just made me. It's one moment. You ever have moments in time where you look back and go, they were so important and decisive moments in the way you do things. That conversation was so important. So, and it put us down this path of what we're doing now. And touch wood, you never get it right, and you never ever 100% wrapped with what you're doing, but and there's always improvements, so you're never ever 100% satisfied. But we know that if we do certain things right, more often than not, they, touch wood, they turn out okay.
Is it fair to say that a game that's resulted with no I guess credit to the green, like not no credit, but no blame or acknowledgement on the way it was prepared is a good game? Like you talked about the wicket going to day 5 and finishing, ultimately, as much as the only reason that occurred was because of the preparation of the wicket. Ultimately, like obviously the teams are elite, but then also it wasn't anything to do with you guys. Like you didn't influence the game in a negative. You only made sure it was a positive game. Yeah,
I think the beauty with pitch preparation is that you can have an influence on the game being
like, as
played.
in the style of how a game's played.
It can, and there's not too many sports out there that turf that they're on can have an influence. So
what is it? You guys golf?
Yeah, it can play a part. So that's the hardest part of the job is that pressure. Everyone has a different opinion. Everyone has an opinion, and it's always different. So we come through and we work out, and my job is to ask for feedback and listen for feedback because I want to get better.
I think the best thing you said before was that you're asking for feedback from the right people.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to go and talk to a bowler that couldn't take a wicket or has taken 5 for. I know what he's going to say, and I'm not going to talk to a batter that made 100 or got out for a duck. I'm going to talk to the captains, the coaches, the umpires, wicket keepers. Wickies, they're really good. They can see exactly what's going on and try and build relationships. And the longer you're in the position, the more relationships you build. And for us, it's consistency. So what we do for a Shield game, we want to replicate a test pitch at a Shield level. We don't want players coming in not knowing what they're getting. We want to know that they're getting a certain type of pitch and an Adelaide Oval type of pitch for any long format that we have. Yeah, and whether it's myself doing it or Todd doing it or JT doing it, it doesn't matter. We want them to come in and have an Adelaide Oval type pitch, not a Damian type pitch.
Yeah, fair. What are the things that you do to, like, obviously, there's, without simplifying what you do, there's only so much you can do with a pitch, right? Like the compound that it grows in, the grass that grows, the inputs that you add to it, how high you cut it, the rolling. What are you doing when you're trying to get a pitch to play differently? Like, what are the techniques you test?
So for a cricket pitch, I guess the way we've been taught, or the way I've been taught at Adelaide Oval, I was fortunate enough, obviously, to work under Les for 14 years, but another guy called Ross Bennett, who was getting close to retirement in my early days, just took me under his wing and gave me so much knowledge and time to improve on what I was doing. So I looked after a lot of the grounds, so number 2 ground out the back of our west practice area, and looked after that. And I was fortunate enough to be given the nod in 2010. So what we got taught was, again, that the pitch needs to have an even grass cover. It needs to have an even amount of water across the pitch, but through the profile as well. And you want to get deep watering into it and wet your whole profile up. And then it's just about choosing the right weight roller at the correct time. So your timing is so important. So the forecast 7 days out is so critical. Getting the timing right with the rollers to roll it as heavy as you can, and really with as much moisture in it so you can take advantage and get that compaction right without blackening the pitch up, and definitely not pushing water with the roller. So it's about timing, and then throughout the day we roll it 3 to 4 times a day, subject to what Mother Nature's doing, and we work it over a series of days to the point that the more rolling we do within reason, we're trying to improve, the compaction and the hardness of the pitch. But you can over roll, so there gets a point when you're not going to improve the compaction, so you don't need to roll while you're trying to. It's the only, you talk to turf managers who don't get cricket, and you explain what you do, and you're actually stressing the turf out deliberately to get the pitch right. So a little bit of green film in the leaf, a little bit of chlorophyll helps with lubricating the ball, so you'll get good pace and bounce. And then it's just getting that moisture right. So what do you, day one, what does your moisture look like? We have an idea of what we're trying to achieve with our moisture and our compaction or our hardness. And then it's about what else are we looking at. So it's how much grass is on the pitch, how much thatch, or mat is there in that pitch. For us, we have a matty pitch, and we've gone that way because the pitch plays so true and doesn't deteriorate, other than the bowlers and batters scratching it up. So if we have a matty grass, we protect the pink ball, so it stays harder for longer. It seams around, so the ball will bite in and nibble around for the quicks. It still bites in and can turn and get good bounce as well. But if you go too far with the mat, it can bite in and it can get a bit tennis bally, where it sort of pops and sort of goes through to the keeper instead of coming up on the rise to the keeper. So, and we have been told we're tennis bally from time to time. And what happens over time, what we're finding is we're not able to get the moisture in through the profile like we could 5 years ago. So we're always looking at ways of getting back to where we were. So nobody knows the beauty with drop-ins. We're like the tip of the iceberg. Nobody really... there's so much more to learn with drop-in pitches.
The world, or we being Adelaide Oval? Or both?
Both. Yeah, we know that we have got so much more to learn, and every year something changes. We can't do what we did last year. You can do certain things, but then you got to tweak some things slightly, because there's something that's not quite right. We do so much measuring and testing to try and keep understanding these cricket pitches and try to stay ahead of that curve, because we've seen grounds that haven't got it right, and it's hard to watch that, and you feel for the curators because there is a life expectancy with cricket pitches in drop-ins. You compact it and compact it and compact it in a tray, and what we're finding is the tray doesn't. So your clay should shrink when it's dry and swell when it's wet, and it should move, and that helps with that deterioration process. And when you're rolling it year after year in a steel tray, we've compacted some of them so hard that there's that cracking and that swelling doesn't exist. So we right now, where we replace one a year, we've got 10, which means every 10 years, if we have an issue, we've got one that could be 1 year old, 2, 3, 4 or 5 years old that we can pull out to use for a test match if, instead of waiting for that life expectancy and getting a bit benign and a bit dead, and then chase our tail for a few years. And that's just learning. That's talking to your colleagues interstate and their mates. So you talk about it and work out what's going on, and it's observing what's going on in your own backyard.
officially you obviously report to a boss. Who do you spiritually report to? Or I guess, like, I imagine on game day there's obviously 110,000 eyes on you.
Yeah.
Plus players, captains, coaches. Like, who do you feel like you're responsible to?
Yeah, my CEO, I report direct to the CEO, and what I will say is, in my time in charge, whether it's Saka or at Adelaide Oval, all of my CEOs have been so supportive. Right now, I report to Nick, and he's been brilliant. He's been there for a bit over 12 months and been so supportive. Before him, Andrew Daniels was so supportive. Their job is to push us hard, to push content, but they'll back us at the same time. My job is not to say no to things when they come and talk to me. No goes through my mind straight away, but to work through the positives and negatives and how can we make things work and how do we get... It's about getting bums on seats, isn't it, really? So we want to fill Adelaide Oval as often as possible, get these events that work, and open it up for the public and the patrons. And it's been such a good story ever since I've been there, but since the redevelopment, it's been a brilliant story. But outside of that, I've probably got two people that are my go-to. So one is obviously Les. There's nobody else. Unless you're in that hot seat of the curator, the head curator, you don't get it. I spent, like I said, 14 years with Les. He looked bulletproof for 13 out of those 14 years. There was only once I saw him it affect him, and on day 5 when the Aussies won, I saw the relief on his face, and but he's the only guy, and he said this to me in the first year. He was kept on as a consultant in the first year, and that was Saka putting a safety net around me, keeping Les as a consultant, and he would kept coming out saying, "I'm here if you need me." And I said, "No, I need to." The best way to learn is to... I can't swear on here, but to stuff up.
You can swear on here.
Right. Well, the best way to learn is to fuck up, isn't it? So,
just below the line of catastrophe.
And that's the only way. And I needed to learn the hard way, as much as you knew that you could get crucified by the public and media. But I needed to learn the hard way. So I probably stubbornly wouldn't go to Les with anything turf related. What Les was great for was talking to him about the pressures of the job, which was more the media, the scrutiny on that 75 square metres. You don't know, even though you work with him for so long, you don't realise the pressure. And that took me... People would say I'm still not good at it, but I reckon it took me 8 years to get used of. It took me 8 years to feel like I wasn't walking in the shadows of the great man. So there was a lot of things. You're always getting compared to someone that was not just a great in Australian curating, in the history of Australian curating, I'd say, but in the global one too, he was highly regarded. So whenever anyone thought about Adelaide Oval, I reckon people thought about two people: Don Bradman, Les Burdett.
I was just thinking while you were talking, it's kind of like, Australia, it's the Prime Minister and the captain of the Australian cricket team. In Adelaide, it's a bit like that. Like, and even now, I mean, how long have you been in the role?
13 years.
And people still tie him to that role.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but he's always been a really good support, and we'd always have a chat. And he's always been a mate first and a boss second, but he's always been a bit of a father figure too.
Yep.
Like, my dad's still around, and we're really close, but he always had that. He just always had that presence. You could talk to him about things and go from there. But and you probably know Les well enough. He'd work hard and play even harder. So and it worked.
Probably matched the era of cricket.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. He'd wave the Saka flag, he'd say, which was getting around, talking to people, having a beer. And he was good at it, and he was renowned for it. So he's obviously one, and the other one for me is Daryl Seller. So He was my lecturer for years, taught me so much, and he's somebody that I go to more than anyone, just to have a chat about life. So he's been there from, for 15 years. When I put in for the job, he supported me, and he helped me through a lot of things and some challenging times. He's always been there. If I need to talk to someone and things aren't going right, whether it's turf related, whether it's the pressure of the job, whether something's not going right, he'll always pick up the phone and always be there.
Do you find that Les would have, and you have to or choose to shield your team from the criticism or opinions of the media and the public?
Look, I don't. Those are there's been moments when, so I don't look at social media. I'm only on Instagram because my mum and dad travelled when they retired. It's the only way to stay in touch and see what they were doing. But I'm not on Facebook. I don't read anything. I get caught up from time to time reading, listening to articles and things like that. Touch wood, we haven't been crucified terribly. We've had some moments where you don't feel great about it. But yeah, I don't say anything to our staff other than probably since COVID. Before COVID, we had a few staff come in and they'd read stuff, and I'd said, just don't read it. Don't read it, because it's we're doing the best you can. But since COVID, I probably had to adjust, and I just figure now we do the best we can, back each other in, support each other, and do the best we can. And we don't always get it right, but we're trying. So cut yourself some slack. And my old turf manager in Dave Egan, we were so alike that we'd fight, we'd end up bouncing off each other negatively, and getting, because we were so ultra with our workloads and our expectations, we would, and I'd say to Dave, mate, after a few hours, it'd be, mate, we just got to drop it, and we've got to get on with it, because it's not helping us. We're doing the best we can, and there's things outside of your control. So work with what's in your control, know you're doing the best you can, and move on. So, but it's easy for me to say, but it's sometimes you go home and you're exactly like that, where you and you hear it with so many superintendents or turf managers, curators. We put more pressure on what anyone else can put on us. So, and that's probably why you're in the position you are, because you strive for perfection all the time.
If there's an event on, are you there? 90% of the time?
Like early days, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, up at, probably in the last few years, cricket more often than not. But I can't. There's that many events there. I've got to get better. My family come first, but work has gotten in the way. Not in the way, but work has taken over so many times. Like my family, I'd be lying if I said that work wasn't getting in the way of my family life and my time with my kids. So, but my kids are all adults now. Now that I'm home, they wished I'm at work. So, and my wife's the same. So, yeah. So you've got to get that balance right. So I won't. I'll work 5-6 games of footy during the year.
Yep.
I don't need to be there. And in cricket season, yeah, of course you're there for the big games, but I don't need to be there for every day of a Shield game. I can get a weekend off around a Shield game if you're there in the lead up to it and the weather's fine. I don't need to be there for every Big Bash game. And I think what comes with that is you're more experienced and you're more... the more experience you got, you don't take it easier, but you're able to put faith in your staff more. And you need your staff. You need good staff. And I, hand on heart, know that I've got the best staff in the country in venues. I've got a lot of experience there and that's nothing against the other venues, but I just know that I don't need to be telling them what to do all the time. I've got passionate staff who are willing to put in the hard yards in the right interests, and it's for Adelaide Oval.
I think, you talked before about like leaving, even though you had Les available to you, you didn't want to grab on to or didn't want to ask because you needed to learn. Obviously, leaving your 2s and 3s ICs to run a day or two gives them that experience before you leave, or before you get promoted, or before they get promoted, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But they need to do that. Otherwise, at some point, they're going to apply for the job. I'm guessing you're not going to do it till the day you die, right?
Yeah. Never know.
That was going to be one of my questions.
Oh no, but you're right.
What's next for Damian Hough? But we're not there yet.
No, but look, the hardest part for me, and it's not letting go, but if the beauty with a cricket pitch and working at a high profile venue as Adelaide Oval is, if the pitch is good, people will think Damian Hough's done it. But if the pitch is shit, people think Damian Hough's done it. So and whether I've done it, so it's fantastic when you don't do a big bash pitch, and Todd or JT have rolled out an absolute beauty, because you get comments.
They've prepped the pitch.
Yeah,
you've had nothing to do with it.
Absolutely nothing to do with it. But people around Australia, you'll get comments from other curators, mate, it's a ripper. Yeah, thanks, mate. Worked hard at it. But no, it'd be
funny if they were speaking to those two. They're like, "Fuck, Damo's done a good one," and they're like, "Yeah, he has." They get a jet, because that's genuine. I think the best feedback is when you hear someone else talking about what you've done and they don't know you're there.
Yeah. So for us, it's, there's always, that's the hardest part for me was letting go completely at certain times.
Yep.
I'll still check in to make sure, and I'll go out there and I'll talk to the guys and make sure everything's fine. And we, like I said, we do a lot of measuring, and we understand our numbers and where we're at and what's going on. And the beauty with cricket pitches is you've got to be there from the start to finish. You can't have somebody do it one day and me the next and somebody else. If I'm preparing it, I prepare it from start to finish, because it changes so much.
Okay. And
you need to be able to see those subtle changes. It can be the difference between a successful pitch and a non-successful, or a very good and a good or an average. It can change like that with what's going on. And what I love right now, and my old manager, Darren Chandler, told me this 4 or 5 years ago, you'll get to an age where you get as much excitement and enjoyment out of seeing your staff develop as you will producing a test pitch.
I don't know when that happened. I completely agree, and I think, I don't know if it's an age or it's just a number of years or a number of laps around the whatever, but I feel like it comes from you no longer being scared that the world's going to take it away from you, right?
Yeah.
Like whether or not it's money or fame or skill. Like you think about, say, Nathan Lyon, like if he might be more inclined to want to help the next spin bowler than he might have been when he was fighting for tests.
Yeah.
Because now it feels like it can't be taken away. Like he is, Australia's pick.
Yeah.
I think it might be the same for you, right? Like you've stamped your authority on it. It's yours. You're now at a point where, I'm putting words in your mouth, but because you're not in anyone else's shadow, you can probably cast some shadows for others and then help, share that. And then when you watch them step out of your shadow, that gives you a level of pride or excitement.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and I agree. I've gone from the new kid onto the block to one of the senior curators in a really feels like a short period of time. And I suppose I have felt like in the last 4 or 5 years you are out of the shadows. And Les will say, mate, you always were, but you feel it. And I think it comes with experience. Hopefully getting some runs on the board and going okay. But at the same time, you're only one bad pitch away from feeling like you're on the chopping block. So again, mindset of growth all the time, wanting to improve. For me as a person, driving that within the team, but giving the guys an opportunity, and Brooke as well, giving our team an opportunity to grow and develop, and put strategy around their ability to grow and develop, and learn to let go. I'm always a little bit of a controlling mindset, and it is hard to let go, but you have to for your own mental well-being. You've got to learn to let go and switch off. I'm not good at it. My wife would sort of laugh at me right now if she heard me say it, but it's, and the staff would too, but it's showing your staff that you want them to step up, and thankfully they all do, whether it's an apprentice getting an opportunity out on the oval, or whether it's me walking away and not doing a pitch, and letting it go. Those first moments are a bit, doesn't feel right, but the more you do, the better it is. And I do pitches now because I love curating, and I don't want to be stuck in the office at meetings. I want to still get out there and do it. And for my, just for my enjoyment, I like getting out there, cutting the outfield. Nothing better to cut the outfield to see what's going on with your outfield and your turf. Same with pitch preparation. Nothing better to prepare pitches. But do I do as many as I did 5 years ago? No, not at all.
You need to probably take some advice from Adam Lewis. He seems pretty comfortable just sitting in the big leather chair and just watching everyone else do the work.
Yeah, I can't do that. But he's a very good operator, very good bloke, ripping human being, really good operator, and he's got beauty with him. There's not too many people with two world class venues side by side to look after. We talk about number 2 ground or the tennis courts or the parklands and just how full on it is. Imagine having 2 world class venues. He's got footy on one ground or rugby, NRL, and then he's just had a fair workload with the Women's World Cup on the other, and he's got to keep both in pristine condition. And he does it. He's very level-headed and very calm and chilled.
There's the word that I had in my head. It just seems like he's just inhaling and exhaling gently and just carrying, just walking forward one step at a time.
And you have to. You gotta balance that out and not have too many highs and lows. You got to try and stay pretty grounded all the time. Otherwise, it'll swallow you up and spit you out.
Do you have a definition or a goal around work-life balance? I think. I asked this question last week in a podcast with an entrepreneur plumber who's like all in on business. Like, do you have a preconceived idea about what your expectations of yourself are and what your wife's expectations might be of you, or do you just kind of wake up and just take one day at a time?
Oh, I think I've changed, and I've had to, because I was so driven and wanted to succeed at all costs. So I've definitely had to change. Luckily, my wife knew me. We've been together for a long time, so she knows my work ethic and what I'm about before I took over the job. So she understands. But look, for me, I pick my moments. There are times when it's go, and you have to put in the work, and it's whatever it takes. And I miss out on family things, and it's not okay, but it is okay because it's got to where I am.
What's your life, right?
Yep.
Like, you only have to be accountable to her and you and maybe one or two others.
Yep. But
and if all those parties are...
Yes. So I work. I do work hard, and I do some long hours, and I do work a lot of weekends. But there are times, for example, in summer where you might only have one day off a week, and you'll work some really long days. But I know in winter that my winter is I'll work the same amount of games as the rest of my team, and I know that I'll go and watch my kids' sport and do that. I might miss it in summer, but I'll pick it up in winter. And I know, and that's the way it is. I'm getting better. I'm not great at it, but I'll try and get myself I'm getting older, so maybe I can't do it anymore. But I can't do those 3 weeks, 4 weeks straight without a day off. I get to 2 weeks without a day off, and I need a break. And normally my staff are saying, "Go and take a break. You're getting grumpy and tired." So I'll come in and I'll do that. But I try and give myself 2 days off a week. Every week doesn't always work. One thing we know is that mobile phones and laptops, that's my biggest issue. That will check emails and your phone's always on. At
the best part about the era we live in, we can work all the time.
Yeah, best or worst, but yeah, and that's something we got to work with. So the biggest issue at home right now is on a day off. I'm never really on a day off because my phone will ring, and I've got to learn not to answer that phone.
Have you got some rules that you've set like that? Like, I guess I don't adhere to them very well, but it's my intent to put my phone on charge when I get home and not take it back off until the kids are asleep, and then I've got that uninterrupted time. And it's not always, there's a reality that for me, I'm obsessed with business. So it's not like I've got this other person saying, if you don't get this report written by the end of the day, you're fired. Like, I'm just like, I can't stop.
Yeah.
I want to be better. I want to do more. I want to, is it like that? Like, you're just like,
it is.
Stop.
Yeah, it is. And it can't, and it just doesn't stop. And I don't like getting snowed under, and I just like certain things. I like to be on top of my emails. If I'm not, I feel worse, and I'd rather do the work and try and stay on top of them. I'm very process driven. I like things in a certain way, and that's just the way I am. So I'd rather sit down on a day off, go through emails for an hour or two, stay in front of it. But there are times when I need to take the time off. My biggest adjustment was probably when my oldest son was 16 or 17, and when you're bringing work home but it's in the head and you just can't switch off, and you're not engaged at home. And I had a reality check one day when he eyeballed me and gave me some honest feedback.
Good on him.
Yeah, and it was a moment where it was like, geez, really talking to me like that? But it was, no, you're right, mate. And I had to adjust, and I'm getting better, but I'm not great. But I need to stay in the present more. So the beauty again, COVID was terrible for me. Start of COVID, hated it, didn't cope at all. But it was because as a head curator manager, you're always planning ahead. So you're never in the moment. You're always planning ahead for something. When that event's over, you review it. So you're always thinking back, and then you're moving ahead. I never used to be in the moment and be in the present, whereas I had to adjust because I wasn't coping, and I had to go, and you know what, there's nothing going on now. We stood 7 of our 10 staff down, and there was 3 of us in there, and I'd be cutting parklands, and there was no games going on, and there's nothing to get better at. We just went and did it, and we had to do it. So you had to learn to live in the moment, and out of something pretty shit came an adjustment that was needed, and I think it's been beneficial for me, and probably our staff that we live a lot more in the moment. You still got to plan. Don't get me wrong. You got to plan months and months ahead, but you've got to learn to smell the roses too when things do go well, and you got to learn to appreciate what you've done as a team. So they're the things that we do a lot better at now.
Yeah, I think that break did that. Everyone had, obviously it was a tough time, but I think a lot of people benefited from some perspective, I guess, that, it can all be quickly ripped away from you.
Yeah, correct.
But without you having to have a serious health concern, right? Like it was just this kind of reminder. Jobs like yours don't come up that much. You look at the golf course supers of the, tier ones, those guys will sit in that seat for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Coming through the ranks, was it on your mind that you wanted Les's job at any point, or it was just happened that the time intersected well? Yeah,
never on my mind until probably 2007 or 8. Again, I always want to grow and develop, so I did my Cert 3. I was lucky enough to go to Adelaide Oval for 6 months, a part of my apprenticeship. 6 months turned into 12 months. All I wanted was, Les Burdett to write a reference letter saying I worked there and I head down, bum up, good worker. That's all I wanted.
Because you could take that to anywhere.
Yeah.
And you're locked.
Yeah, and I had a job lined up at Port Adelaide Enfield Council under the supervisor at the time, Daryl Beanie, and I just said to Daryl, I really just want 6 months at Adelaide Oval. It was in the turf side, and I just wanted 6 months at Adelaide Oval, 6 months, and I just worked my ass off, hoping something could come up. Nothing against Daryl and the council, they really looked after me, and it was in the turf side, and then Adelaide Rams came up. So
I forgot we had the Rams.
Yeah, remember that? So it was 97, would have been.
What year were you born?
99. Yeah, so you can't remember it. But
they probably finished in 99.
Yeah. So we had Adelaide Rams come up, which meant Adelaide Oval was busy with SANFL and the Super League, so was able to stay on. Then I stayed on another summer and then got engaged and wanted a house and ended up going from there, and I was really fortunate. So really grateful for being there, worked really hard and had no desire at all. You saw the hours that Les had put in. I got into the turf industry because I love working outdoors. I fell in love with turf about 12 months in, 8 to 12 months in, after working at Adelaide City Council at the North Adelaide Golf Links. Fell in love there. Everywhere I went, I just wanted to do turf. Adelaide Oval was one of the places I could go to, and I sort of got there in September 96 and never left. So I feel really fortunate. Like I said, it was probably 2007 or 8. I can remember the day. Les it was a one-dayer, not sure who Australia was, would have been a tri-series, looking after the practice pitches, and he grabbed me and said, the curator at the Bell Reef, so Cameron Hodgkins, who I spoke about, he left Melbourne as 2IC, went down to Bell Reef, oversaw that for 4 or 5 years, and then got poached back to MCG to run that. And he left, and Les knew the CEO really well. They were good mates, and he said, I've put 4 names forward who I would look at. You're one of them. And I was like, and he liked to drink on game day, Les, if it was sunny and that. And I thought, geez, you're just pissed. And he wasn't, but I went home and I remember waking Kylie up and I said, guess what? And I just, from that moment, I just went, I'm not ready for this. But I decided to give it a go, and I ended up, I didn't get it, but I got down to the final 2, and that sort of just gave me the desire to want to keep growing. And like I said, everything I did, I wanted to get better. So I did my Cert 3, did my Cert 4, did my diploma, again under Daryl Seller, did my advanced diploma, frontline management, anything I could do to give myself more growth and more experience and more development. I did, because I was the turf supervisor. I was third in line, and I just couldn't get. There was things I couldn't get. I ended up overseeing a lot of everything out the back, number 2 ground, the tennis courts, because we had our own tennis courts, and the state practice area, some gardens and stuff. And I just worked hard and made sure I just had a growth mindset. And I still do to this day. It's something that I look for with all my staff that come on board. If they've got a growth mindset and they want to improve and they want to strive, I'll back them in. But and the same with me, I've got that. And I say to my staff, if whenever I get to that point where I'm not wanting to improve, tap me on the shoulder. It's time for me to step away. So, and that's it. And I was so fortunate to be able to, from that moment, decide that actually it's something that I'd look at. So I've been lucky, and then I was lucky. I put in, they advertise internally, and I thought I'll just put in for it. Didn't think I'd get it, and somehow I was the one that got the nod to do it, and I just thought it was the best time of my life. It was the best, but it was really daunting too, and it was like, shit, don't know, am I ready for this? But you sink or swim, so you just got to jump in the deep end and have a go.
So that was advertised internally only?
Internally only.
Okay.
So
I like that. I think that it disappoints me, and I understand why it happens, but it disappoints me when I see a golf course's 2IC not be the key focus for the replacement of a super when a super retires or leaves. And I understand that just because you're a good 2 doesn't mean you're a good 1 and all that, but I think sometimes people get excited and they start looking for like superstar supers, right?
Yeah.
The ones that have worked here and worked there and worked there, and that come with a level of bravado and a level of whatever, rather than going, this is the best person for the job. They've done their, I mean, what do you do, 14 years?
Yeah.
They've done their time. Right?
Yeah, and the what you don't realise is that board, you know, the chairmans and the vice presidents and, you know, the CEOs, they're watching without you knowing. They're actually watching what's going on. And now that you're in the seat as the head of your department, you're watching all of your staff all of the time, and it's those behaviours and those values that they bring and what they've got over many years. You know, you can't just turn it on or turn it off. So, yeah, it was good. It was important moment in my working life, and something that I'm so fortunate.
Do you think the interview for that job started 14 years prior? Kind of thing, like you were basically living an interview.
Yeah, I don't know. You think about that from time to time,
like
but
think, like Les obviously would have had some say. He would have obviously put his opinion forward. You would have had.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know because again, I'm not sure. It was. I didn't expect it because I have a lot, and I had, and I still have a lot of respect for my old 2IC. But yeah, I'm not sure what it was, but I don't know. I haven't asked. I don't. You sort of got to move on. And
well, they can't take it now. It's yours.
Think about it. You just got to get into it. And at the time, it was like, shit. Okay, don't get this. Don't stuff this up. So, and I know it wasn't Les's decision.
Well, yeah, I wasn't. I was more thinking. There's probably in a job like that, there's probably 10 or 15 or 20 people that put forward their, hey, you know, the backroom chat. Like, look, I know you're thinking this, but we think that. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. Don't know.
Been watching this kid for a while.
Yeah, it must have been. So, but like I said, they interviewed internally, and I was fortunate. And then away we went. We got into it, and we had to hit the ground running and make sure it was successful.
You've recently been able to travel overseas and be involved in consulting or assisting with some pitch prep?
Yeah, but been really fortunate. Again, you're not out there looking for it, but it was probably through Cricket Australia. Pakistan Cricket Board contacted Cricket Australia mainly around drop-in pitches, and then one thing led to another. There's a phone call, I think, to a few curators around the place. And then there was we want to go drop-ins, we'd like you to come over. And work supported me the whole time. And it was an unbelievable experience. Obviously, the Aussies have just travelled there, so you had to do your due diligence. So talking to the security manager for Australia who did the visits and put together the security plans in depth with him. Sean Tate was a bowling coach of Pakistan, so contacted him, had some good conversations, and they're just so passionate. It was such an unbelievable experience. To say 14, 15 years ago I would have done that, that'd be I wouldn't have got on a plane on my own to travel over there. But yeah, felt safe the whole time. They supported me. They looked after me. They were so appreciative, so grateful. It was unbelievable. So I was there for almost 2 weeks. Travelled around to 4 different cities, reviewed a lot of things, talked to them about drop-ins, clays, how we do things in Adelaide, and it was just a really enjoyable couple of weeks. Provided a report, and still stay in contact. 15 months, 14 months later, still stay in contact, and go from there. So yeah, there's always something going on that you have the ability to do a little bit of travel, which again is beauty with the turf industry. It can take you all over the world, and your job is really just to go over there, support them, build relationships, and sort of go from there really. So always keen to have a look around the world if you can. Yeah,
Do you think you learned anything from that? Obviously, you've gone there because they wanted to learn from you, but was there anything you took away from travelling that you could have brought back here, or even just life?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, you see some real third world stuff, and you see the way they operate and the machinery they operate with, where they're wanting to go, where they're trying to go, some of the challenges they face, which we don't, with our structures, and just talking to them, it's you come back really. Look, I'm grateful anyway. I'm really grateful for our work and the support I get, but you come back with a renewed love of Adelaide Oval and for Adelaide and South Australia, and a love for it just made you realise. They didn't have the best of the equipment. They're putting plans in place to get better equipment. Staff are underpaid, and things like that. So compared to us, they are. But yeah, they just got a smile on their face. The beauty was there was security and support around you the whole time. But I was going to say we sneak out, but that's not right. At 8 o'clock each night, the chief curator, Agar, and Usman would take me out with the driver, and we'd just go down to the markets, or we'd go out just to the streets like a normal commoner and just go and eat their local food. And the way the support they have for each other and the love they have of cricket is unbelievable. And it was brilliant. It was a real eye opener.
Were you like a bit of a star to them? Like, were they? Oh, this is the guy from Adelaide Oval.
Don't know. There were times when you'd get the media and they'd be all over you, and there was times when where you said something and it got taken out of context, and all of a sudden you were like, I didn't say that. So it was like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk. I want to just fly under the radar. The one thing I never want is the media side. I'm happy to do my job. Of course, you love a compliment, but I'm happy to fly under the radar, and just do what I've got to do, and go from there. And that was the same over there. I didn't need people to know that I was coming over there, but once it got out that they were having somebody come over, it took off pretty much. And they managed it really well. They were really good from the top down. We really got looked after, and they're trying. They're wanting to improve because they're coming back into international cricket matches in their country for the first time in a very long time.
They haven't been able to play, obviously.
No, but in the last 12 to 18 months, they're getting it back there, and they're wanting to grow and develop, and they're doing some real world-class practices in regards to trial work and changing things up. They've bought cricket pitch soil out of Perth, exactly like the Wacker.
Wow.
That was in quarantine while I was there, and it's only just come out of quarantine in the last 2 or 3 months. So they're wanting to do that. They looked at drop-in pitches. I don't think they'll do it.
They probably don't need drop-in pitches, do they?
Well, they don't, because
they're not playing anything but cricket.
Yeah. So, but they don't. But their previous chairman was wanting to provide the best facilities possible. So what they want is when they come over to Australia or New Zealand or South Africa, they want to provide the best services. They want to provide pace, bounce and carry so the players can adjust.
And so they saw that drop in pitches was the solution when maybe they were just trying to copy replicate what was being done by some of the best grounds in the world, not looking through the lens of the fact that the best grounds in the world are actually multi-use grounds.
Yeah, so there was a part of the process was to talk to some construction site fabricators to work through what that looks like. One thing I'm not an expert on building trays. We knew how to build them, so I couldn't give them a lot of information other than give them some guidance on things to look for. They needed their engineers to work through that, but they couldn't get the pictures in. They don't have the
machinery.
No, and they don't have the openings in their stadiums
just solid
to drive a crane in or a semi in with it on there. So it was, if they decide to do it, it'll be building a tray in a facility to replicate Optus Stadium, or they could just build the pitch in the ground and still probably get the same outcome. So yeah, it was about just giving not recommendations but some advice or an understanding of the way I saw things over there, and it was some recommendations. It was more around, you could do that, but do you need to do this?
It's probably not different to what you were saying when it happened here. You were there just asking questions.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? I'd look at this. Is that
it. Yeah. So it wasn't, you must do that. It was, hey, you can do that, but do you need to do that? Yeah. Could you focus it more on this? Understand if you want to go down this path that makes sense, that you could do that, but are you planning to pick it up and move it out, or you're planning to leave it in there? If you're planning to leave it in there, do you need it? And let them make the decisions. Just provide our role. Even here, my role is, and a lot of turf managers' role is to educate and communicate. So for me, whether it's my board and my staff and my CEO, it's around open communication, no surprises, educate them on what we're trying to do, and try and execute to the best of our ability. If you go over to Pakistan, it was the same. It was education around the way we prepare pitches, what we try to do, and it definitely wasn't how to prepare Australian pitches. It was no. I'll show you how we prepare pitches at Adelaide Oval, and this is how we do it. And it was going through those processes, and it was talking to them about the positives and negatives and the challenges and grass versus no grass, and my experiences over 25 years, my experience with that, and that was where it was. It's not telling anyone how to suck eggs. It's just providing a different voice, I suppose, on the way we do things and how things go.
Have you got goals or unfinished business at Adelaide Oval? Like, have you still got things that you're working on? Obviously, when you started, you would have had some, the Damian Hough stamps getting put on this and this. Like, is there still some focuses? Yeah,
they never stop. So the beauty with Adelaide Oval is it's still challenging, it's still exciting. There's still, things change all the time. So I don't feel stale, and I'm not. You get worn out, don't get me wrong, but a few weeks off and you're back into it. There's very few days that I wake up not wanting to get out of bed and go to work, and I could count them on one hand. So that's good. I'm 49, so that's positive that I still wake up and do that. But yeah, we're always we're always trying to, as I said, mindset of growth means you're always looking for new tweaks on things, different products. You don't chuck it out, the baby out with the bathwater. You have things that work, and we believe in certain things. I'm big on relationships. I'm big on you having programs that work for us, and they've worked for a reason. But I'm always open to change things. So whether it's the outfield, drop-in pitches, like I said, tip of the iceberg, we're trialling different things all the time. Again, we're not reinventing it completely because it's working for us. But we can't stand still. MCG are nailing it at the minute. They are doing some really good stuff.
So they're your allies, but you're watching over the fence and like...
everyone's really close.
Yep.
All the curators are close. We talk all the time. We bounce ideas off each other all the time. We openly and honestly provide support and feedback. But can I swear?
Yeah,
but
it's fine. This is my podcast. Come on.
But you're full of shit if you don't have a competitive edge.
Yep.
So of course you want to be.
Yep.
You want the top marks all the time. Of course you want people to say.
How's that compared though? Is it just your opinion, or is it like?
It's so.
Is there actually like an international like Melbourne MCG beat Adelaide Oval at this?
Nah, no, not at all.
It's just you guys know.
Do you like MCG got full marks, top rating? They're the only ones in the country last year to get very good.
Yep.
Some of us got good. Some got average.
Who judges that?
Match referee.
Okay. So it's legit.
We get rated on every international pitch and every first class pitch.
And then
every pitch that's out there gets a rating.
And then the head curator from the MCG just sends you a little emoji of just like...
Nah, we're all respectful. We're all respectful, but of course you're competitive.
Yeah.
You don't want to. You don't want to be dropping. You want to keep improving, and so they're nailing it. They're doing some really good stuff. And our pitches are getting older, so we need to keep reinvesting time and not taking things for granted and resting on our laurels. So we don't change the end result of what we're after, but we're always looking at improving. So that could be the tray design. It could be some techniques we're doing. Just change one little thing and see how that goes. How do we? Right now we tick the box on so many areas, but how do we get more pace and bounce in our pitch early in the game? We always get told it's a little bit slow. How do we get better at that? We know that our organic matter has increased over the last 10 years. So the last 7 years. So the last 3 years we've been working on removing that organic with top makers.
Can you put synthetic compounds in the clay? Has anyone done that?
They've got synthetic fibres.
Like to give it the bounce?
Yeah, they use them around the world, but we will
It's
never...
not a traditionalist attitude, like you want to be organic and that's it?
For me, keep it simple. Like keeping it simple. If you put fibres in there, it holds it together really well. And they're really good for facilities that are high use and don't get that break. They training facilities, the block holes will hold together a lot better. They're using it at white ball cricket throughout England, and the feedback's really good. I would never use it for a longer format.
Because it
doesn't deteriorate the way you want the pitch to deteriorate. So, definitely not. But yeah, we're looking at tray designs. Beauty is Saka have just their board have approved 2 drop-in pitches down at Karen Rolton Oval because Trent gets so much cricket early on, and his square just gets a flogging in footy season. So we're taking 2 of our drop-ins down because we're trying to replicate, wherever the Redbacks play, they got the same type of pitch, so consistency, and that's it's unbelievable. It's a real high performance mindset from Trent and Saka to try and keep consistency with the players wherever they go in South Australia. So that's what we're doing, and the outside of that is we get to build 2 more pitches at Adelaide Oval,
which may have a tray change.
Yeah, so we're looking at that. So we're working with Trent and the Redbacks and how that looks, and designing our own trays, and I suppose learn from 10, 11 years, 12 years of development and what you've seen. And what you need, what we're trying to work on is how do we get a pitch to deteriorate naturally and try and replicate what the old Adelaide Oval was.
Do you just drive those pitches down with the big wheelers, or do you put them on a truck and then
truck.
And then take the transporter down there?
Yeah.
Far out.
Yep. So starts...
Thankfully, it's around the corner, right?
Yeah.
Or two corners.
Started on Monday, digging it out. Trent's led that part down parked at Karen Rolton. We've literally pulled our pictures out today. Made sure that we can get them there, and Trent's organised for transport. So we'll put a pitch in on Monday on the back of a semi with our pitch transporter. Go down there, put it in, drive the transporter back on the semi. We tried to get approval to drive it down there, but we couldn't.
Take too long, wouldn't it?
Too heavy to get across the bridge there on Morford Street.
You got to drive around the back.
Right around the back, Port Road. So yeah, we'll do that Monday, Tuesday, and then start of September look at building 2 pitches. So fabricating the pitches and building them and try something different. So it's not a failure if it doesn't work. It's a learning. So
what turf is that you're putting on those wickets?
Oh, so it'll be Santa Ana, but we've got 8 Santa Ana, and we've got 2 Legend pitches. So there's a lot of different turf varieties out there, and we'd love to. But again, people that know me, baby steps. Yeah. It'll take me a bit to start altering.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is see what the changes we've made, what it looks like with the current grass variety that we're using to get a real clear understanding of what's happening. And the beauty is you're not going to know for 2 years. You can't do it and play on it that first year. We'll build them in September, get the healthy root mass going through the profile.
Are they having them out of the oval, or are they putting them in the oval?
We'll put them on our number 2 ground.
As in they're going straight in the centre?
No,
they're on the side.
Yeah, number 2 on the side there. Yeah.
So then they'll bring them in for when they're ready.
Year.
What do you have turf at home?
Yeah.
Is it any good?
It's the old Adelaide oval, deep pockets on the western side.
So you cut it off and took it home?
Yeah, they were looking at doing the irrigation, the drainage work. So I think Smith Brothers Plumbing were about to go in there, and I'd been on to Les for weeks about needing some. Just moved into a new home at Blackiston and had no grass there, and I was lucky enough to get a couple acres, so I just wanted grass out the front. So I literally front end loader. I can remember it Friday afternoon, Justin Groves, myself, sod cutting it up, picking it up with a front end loader, chucking it into a tip truck, driving home, tipping it up, getting my kids that were probably 6, 5, 7 and 9 and said, "Oi, turn the green up, roots down," and I did 2 or 3 runs and did it all.
And then what, just top dressed it out over the next couple of years?
Yeah, pretty much. But I'm not going to answer whether it's any good.
What turf is it?
Santa Ana.
Yeah, okay.
Pure Santa Ana. So it's okay. It's not nothing I would take a photo of. And
we're not going to put it on like curators' calendars of 2024 or anything? You might be ready by then?
I'm trying to get better at it. Yeah, but you're at work all the time, so I've got a cylinder mower. I've got Les's had a cylinder mower, and I bought it off of him.
Imagine what that'd be worth for some. There'd be diehards that'd be like, "I'll buy that off you."
Yeah, so I get out there with it, and yeah, I love it, but it's a lot of work needed.
Yeah, it's the mechanic's car kind of thing, isn't it?
Correct.
This is a question that I ask most people, and I'll make it the last question because you probably need to go. If you could do any other job in the world, and you've got the skill set to do it, and you can step straight into it, right? So, Formula 1 driver, heart surgeon, really successful irrigation store podcast guy.
Yeah.
What would you do, and where, and why? Anything.
No, I've got my perfect job.
You've got it.
Honestly.
Has anyone else said that?
I think so.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's really cool.
No. I sat down, so I finished year 12. I was going to say I was immature. I probably still am. But I had no idea what I wanted to do. Back in the days, you had you won't remember this, but there used to be big magazines with every job in the world. every job that was out there. So I wrote down all the jobs. So I would say I wanted to be an astronaut because that was one. And I put them all down there, and then realistically I went back and looked at it all. And I got horticulture was one, and I actually liked electronics. So I did an electronics course, saw one, had a mate that was going to do it, did it for 12 months, come back the next year, mate dropped out, did it for the first term, so 15 months, hated it with a passion, wasn't going too well, and I just thought, what the hell am I doing with my life? I hate what I'm doing. But I was never, ever, I was brought up that you don't quit. You follow things through. You start something, you finish it. And you work hard at it. And then the contractors, don't even know who they were. Teachery Gully TAFE were out there cutting the around the trees and the parklands. And I loved that smell of the grass. And I just went, and it took me quite a while to go and say to Mum and Dad, I'm absolutely hating it. And I felt like I was drifting through life, and I did a Cert 2 in horticulture, but it was turf as well. And it started off from there. And I, to this day, if I pie in the sky, I'd say I would have loved to have been an astronaut or a pilot or something like that. But I honestly walked out, got an apprenticeship, ended up at Adelaide Oval, walked out on day one, true story, Les Burdett, come on in, don't worry about this week, we're doing renovations, this isn't a normal week, we'll get through this week and we'll give you some stuff to do. And walked out onto Adelaide Oval in the southwest corner, it's where the race used to be, from our workshop, which used to be behind the Bradman stand there, under the indoor centre. And I had goosebumps because I walked out on the Adelaide Oval. Then the west stand, the vine growing up out on, and I had this chill go up my spine. And I just went, how fucking lucky am I? And I can still remember it. And I still have those moments when you get to sit back and smell the roses. And you look at, you used to always look at the northern end, scoreboard, mound, 100-year-old Moreton Bays, and you go, God, I'm lucky. But you go around that northern end and you look south now at that beautiful riverbank stand, and I still have those moments where I go, God, I'm pretty lucky. This is my backyard. This is my work office.
It's pretty cool.
So my ideal job, I reckon I got it. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I think I had more of a technical podcast in mind, but I'm glad that it went in the direction that it did, and I hope that our listeners get value from it. I'm just going to quickly check my phone because I posted on Instagram before, which you wouldn't have seen because you don't care about social media and you don't want to hear from these critiques, just to see if anyone actually responded with a question for you. Here's a question for you. What is your calf workout routine? Obviously, the photo I posted of you had some very defined legs. I'm guessing it's just working hard.
Yep, working hard.
That's not a question for you. That's a question for me. Are you guys looking for staff at the moment?
Yes and no. Yeah, so we've just done a 3-year strategic plan. So we've put that together to guide where Adelaide Oval was going to go for the next 3 years. Board have signed it off, and part of that is we are about to launch Adelaide Oval Turf Solutions. So what we're going to do is, and it's not out there, but a few people know about it, and it's getting out there. But
well, like at least another 8 people will know after this podcast gets released.
Yeah. So what we're
more than that now.
10. What we're wanting to do is just get out there and support the turf industry. We see an opportunity, I suppose, with our experience and expertise, and what we do know with our partners in Saka and Sandford, their strategic plans show actually highlight that the poor condition of the ovals and it's in their strategic plans to improve the quality of surfaces. So there's been an understanding or a need or a want from management to assist where we can, and the beauty with that is I'm able to put some of my staff that have been developing really well over 10 years out into that area and get a different skill set. We're able to provide support to the industry to improve ovals, maintenance, renovations, consulting, around pitches, able to look at drop-ins, so around different parts of the country or overseas as well. There's opportunities out there, and it's just been, I guess, off the back of Gather Round, off the back of my trip to Pakistan, off the back of phone calls around some support was hang on, this might work. So it's been in the making for 5 years, if I'm brutally honest, with my old boss telling me we should look at it and bluntly pushing back, saying we're busy enough, but it just makes sense right now with the need for more ovals, with the women's sport taking off and growing and
population
and
change.
Supporting and getting out there and supporting. And the beauty is that it ends up going back to grassroots. So whatever we do, we support communities and help out. So that Turf Solutions is about to start off, or it already has, and hopefully it grows. And we'll just scale up as we get busier. If people want our service, we'll put more staff on it and develop and grow. And we've employed 2. They haven't started yet. We're looking, also talking, had some interviews with mechanics. Since COVID, we lost our mechanic, and we've been with Toro for the last few years, and we're getting busier and busier, and it's harder and harder for Toro. So Toro sort of suggested that maybe we look at getting their support to find a mechanic ourselves and go back to where we were, which we've had a mechanic there ever since I was there in '96, started, and we've always had our own mechanics. Only been the last 2.5 years, 3 years that we went down this path. So yeah, we are looking at growing and developing, and looking for the experienced staff, but more importantly the right values and the right mindset and growth mindset. Yeah, 100%.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, mate.
I really appreciate you coming in.
No problems at all.
If anyone wants to be the mechanic at Adelaide Oval, come and see me, because I'm going to take the recruitment dollars. I'll sell them to you. All right. I'll let you go.
Thanks, Clint.
Thanks, mate.